Yo, what's good everyone? It's Cav PJ. I hope you're having a good day. And we're back with another NBA video, man. Today we are reacting to the Ja Morant situation. Just got weird again. I've been hearing some things. I'm sure you guys have been hearing some things too. So let's react to it. This is by Sports. Logically, I'll tag them down below, as I always do. And yeah, let's see what they're saying, man. I'm curious. I'm curious to see. I saw a little bit of it on Instagram, a bit of news on Ja, but let's go into a bit more detail here, shall we?
The NBA is keeping an eye on Ja Morant. Respected insiders are saying that if you're looking for the next big star to be moved to a new team, that the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant are the best place to look. Now, my first thought is probably just like what all of yours were. What are you talking about? Like, this is not happening. Memphis is having a great season. They've bounced back from all the injuries that they had last year. They have a real shot at making a bunch of noise in the playoffs. They're young. They have a ton of depth. And at the center of all that is, yes, Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, but most notably, Ja Morant. So why would there be noise about the Grizzlies possibly moving on from Morant? Well, reportedly, it is exactly that. This wouldn't be a situation where Ja wanted to go elsewhere. Presumably, he is happy in Memphis. It's more so that the Grizzlies in this post-Luka Doncic trade world are concerned about his future. Now, to be clear, this would not just happen. This would be as a direct result of whatever Memphis's postseason run looks like. Obviously, if they have a successful run to the conference finals or the finals,
Bro, I can't even believe this is like a talk right now. I can't believe this is talk, bro. Memphis, Ja is Memphis. When I think of the Memphis Grizzlies, I think of Ja Morant, and you take him away from that. I mean, come on, it's a whole nother Luka Doncic situation, and I feel like if the Grizzlies even consider this, man, the fans are gonna go crazy. I know Ja is probably not having his best season this year, but still, he's got so much room to grow. You know, he's still young, and he doesn't need to be shipped off like that. I mean, what? I can't even. Let's.
Morant's playing well. He's healthy. They're not trading away Ja Morant. He's a key piece of the team, even with the Luka trade and having the Mavs go to the finals and 9 months later trade Luka Doncic. This report is all about if Memphis, the way they have in the past, isn't as successful in the postseason as they would like to. This is dependent on a bad postseason outcome. And if that was to happen, would they look at possibly trading Ja Morant? Right now, it seems like the answer would be yes. And in turn, that creates a very interesting situation. First and foremost, they're concerned about the fact that Ja is just hurt all of the time. He's only played in 32 games this year. He played in 9 games last year after a suspension and then an injury that ended his season. And he's just never been a super durable guy. He's never played 70 games in a season once. His play style necessitates him missing some games. They've been very careful with him throughout the entirety of the season. It remains to be seen if that's because they're concerned about long-term injury issues or if because they just want to make sure he is healthy for the playoffs. But just like in the past, when Ja doesn't play, it doesn't necessarily negatively affect Memphis, and that has been a theme for him throughout his career. The Grizzlies have always found a way to still be pretty good, if not great, even when Ja doesn't play, and that has continued this season. Of course, it's not just the injuries. There has to still be plenty of concern about the off-the-court stuff with Ja Morant. We haven't had any issues with him this year, but one of the reasons why he was kind of knocked off his pedestal as the next, American-born star, now that guy is Anthony Edwards. It was Ja Morant 2 years ago, but then he had the 25-game suspension.
Bro, who remembers when Ja was on top? Bro, there was a point where I think people were saying Ja was better than SGA. I think he actually might have been at one point better than Shea. But I remember that, and he was on top. He was on top. And then all of a sudden the 25-game suspension, and bang, I feel like he hasn't properly recovered from it. Because he's not the usual self he is. I feel like he's not the same player he was. I mean, when I watch him, something feels different. Do you know what I mean?
Multiple run-ins with the league, and there has to be some concern there for Memphis in terms of making that guy the foundational part of your team. And this is never an organization that has just been beholden to having their star guy. This isn't Ja Morant and the other guys. Jaren Jackson's arguably the best player on the team. Desmond Bane's had an up and down season, but obviously is very good. And they're one of the best organizations in the entire league. They draft well. They make smart moves, with the exception of the Marcus Smart trade didn't work out. A lot of that was because of injuries. There have been some moves that have been fantastic, but when you look top to bottom at this roster, it's one of the deepest and youngest rosters in the entire league. So they're not going to be afraid to decide that they would rather keep that intact and then potentially move on from the main piece if they're concerned about injuries and or off the court stuff. And along with that, over the last 2 years or so, when Ja just hasn't been that much a part of the team has gotten better around him. Jaren Jackson Jr. is arguably the core of the team. The depth that they have is arguably the core of the team. They've changed the way that they've played this year to be a better half-court offensive team, which was their Achilles heel in the past, especially in the postseason when it was Ja, save us, every possession. Everything was about Ja creating. They've gone away from just letting Ja create everything. They've been more delegating in terms of how they're running their offense, which again makes them rely less and less on Ja Morant. And speaking of the playoffs, when they had Ja at the center of everything, there was not a ton of playoff success for Memphis, especially offensively. They were this super high energy team that guarded, that defended, that you didn't want to play in the regular season. They would churn out regular season wins just like they are this year, but in the postseason things would slow down. Now, there was injury issues and a bunch of other stuff. Memphis was super young at the time, and they still are, but there's a lot of different factors that you could look at and say, maybe Ja isn't the reason that Memphis is on the trajectory that they are, and if they have a chance to maybe get out of the Ja situation, they could be even better off. And this isn't unprecedented. Obviously, the Luka thing is on a whole different level, but teams in the past have decided that it was time to go and make a trade like this early rather than wait. We know that the Trae Young stuff has kind of brewed in Atlanta a little bit over the last couple of seasons, which it's not the exact same situation because Trae plays a ton and is really, really good, but it's just one of those, why would you look to be moving this guy? What's wrong with this guy? Why are there rumors around him? There certainly have been rumors around Trae over the last couple of seasons. DeJounte Murray is another one that comes to mind where he was really good in San Antonio despite some injury issues and seemed like a core foundational part of their team, but they were willing to move off of him, ironically, to Atlanta, and they were okay moving on earlier than a lot of people thought they should have. Now, a lot of that had to do with the contract that DeJounte Murray was going to be up for and the fact that they didn't think he was super worth it. Turns out they were right. Ja, on the other hand, is under contract through the summer of 2028 on a deal that's going to pay him between $37 and $44 million a year all the way through 2028. So they've already committed, they've already given him the big contract, but some things have happened since he signed the deal that apparently has given Memphis some pause. So if we know why they might potentially move Ja Morant, what teams would be interested? Really quickly, though, I want to think this.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear what teams would be interested because I got no clue who would need a point guard. I feel like everyone kind of has a. I mean, the Nets. I mean, they got D'Lo. What kind of contending teams need a point guard? If I could think, I mean, the Bucks. Nah, Drew Holiday's there, right? Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's skip this ad, bro. I don't want to hear this ad.
The sponsor of today's basketball is going to be pick to get in the NBA. You think for all that we're going to prize some teams that are looking towards the future. Despite the injury issues, despite the off-the-court stuff, Ja's still just 25, 26 years old, and you're thinking about what your team's going to be like 3 or 4 years from now if you're trading for Ja. With that in mind, I think a team like Brooklyn is always a team to keep an eye on.
Hey,
they were definitely at least semi-interested in the De'Aaron Fox thing before he ended up in San Antonio. They're looking to add some young players this offseason. They're going to have a ton of cap space, and in a scenario in which Memphis doesn't finish where they want to in the playoffs, and they're potentially looking at trading away Ja, I think Brooklyn is a team that absolutely would call and see what it would take. They've got some picks, they've got some young players and some options, and
I like Ja in Brooklyn. I kind of like that. He'll have the reins. He can do whatever he wants.
Definitely need some guard help. They need a focal point of their team, and Ja would work really well in that market as this big-time star in a bigger market. Another team I think would be interesting would be Orlando, despite the fact that the spacing would be weird between Ja and Paolo and Franz, but that kind of fits their timeline. It's another team, one of the few teams around the league, but similar to Brooklyn, another team that needs guard help, that needs a creator, that needs someone in the backcourt that isn't, Cole Anthony or Anthony Black. That's something that could potentially make sense for Orlando moving forward as another key piece of what they think they're building there, again, despite the potential spacing issues. Another team that would maybe make sense here, depending on what their future plans are, is the Chicago Bulls. Like, they're always kind of weird. They're a bigger market. Maybe they see Ja as their foundational superstar moving forward, someone that they can trade not that much for, depending on how willing Memphis is to
I think the Bulls are going to stay with Giddey.
Continue to move forward with that. They're always willing to be right in that 38 to 44 win range, and Ja would certainly accomplish that even with the roster that they currently have. But beyond that, this is actually not that great of a market. And I think that market illustrates why Memphis is maybe okay with this happening, why they're possibly exploring, if the season doesn't go well this year, trading away Ja Morant. Because if you're Memphis and you don't view Ja Morant as the reason that your team is playing the way that it is and has a real chance to win a title, you'd be okay moving on from him if you're worried about the contract, if you're worried about the injury history, if you're worried about the off-the-court stuff. And again, they have full trust and faith in their organization to still put together a great team, even if they were to move on from Ja. Now, would it actually happen? At this point, post-Luka trade, nothing would surprise me. I would not be surprised if this offseason or the following, Ja Morant is on a different basketball team, and he certainly feels less foundational, less to the core of what the Grizzlies are as a basketball team than he ever has in the past. Like, he only plays once or twice a week. 32 games at this point of the season is not that many, and they're still doing just fine. It's just an interesting situation between maybe what the public perception of him as the core of the team is compared to the reality. And again, it goes back to the Luka trade. It's another comparison to make to that, where nobody really realized how fractured things were between Luka and the Mavs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Morant thing isn't necessarily on that level, but something similar. And in a post-Luka Doncic trade world in the NBA, absolutely nothing would shock me, including Ja Morant getting traded from the Grizzlies.
Yeah, okay. Now, I mean, look, if I'm a Memphis fan, I'm fuming just because I feel like teams shouldn't give up so quickly. Yeah, he's had a few injuries. Can't say hasn't played a lot of games. They've been winning without him. But, like, come on, you drafted him second overall. Like, he was your core player. Well, he's only 26 or something. Is that right? Like, do you really need to move on from him? Like, can't you just work through it? Can't you, like, figure ways out, improve? Like, you just gotta go, alright, let me just get rid of our best player, Ja. Alright, get out. And the question is, alright, say you do get rid of Ja, do you really think the Grizzlies are gonna win a championship? They're not. They're still not gonna win a championship. So, like, unless they get, who would the Grizzlies even need to compete for a championship? They've got good depth. G.G. Jackson off the bench. Who else? They've got some good guys. They've got, what's his name? Brandon Clark's there. Santi Aldama. They've got good rotational pieces. Obviously, Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bain, two of the core pieces. And then you would need a point guard to, maybe a scoring point guard. And that is, I mean, Ja can't really shoot, but he can drive. He can defend okay as well. He's a high flyer. I don't know. I just feel like if the Memphis Grizzlies just get rid of him that quick, they're going to regret it. Like, the Mavs are probably going to regret the Doncic trade. I mean, he had a good game today. He dropped 32 or something, 7 and 8. So he's shedding off his rust. The Mavs will regret that in like 5 years, trust. So yeah, it's different with Ja. It's different with Ja, but the fact that this is even conversation is interesting. And I'm curious to see what the Grizzlies will do. But yeah, man. That is the end of this video. What was I going to say? I just blanked out for a second. It's been Calf PJ. I hope you've had a good day. I'll see you guys in the next video. Like, subscribe if you want. If you like this NBA reaction style content. And yeah, let's talk more basketball later, bro.